Hello, this is a Bechstein Model 10 upright piano made in 1903. First ones came out in 1902, restyled from the Model 5, and Model 10 is a piano that we've bought and sold many of, and it has a very sweet tone to it. So just want to examine it. It's in for assessment in transit, where it's going from A to B and coming via our workshop to see what sort of work might improve the piano. So let's look at the casework first, and do you want to look at the work that we would do if it was a piano that we took into stock. So very often you find that the fronts of the legs here are just veneer missing and so on. So that obviously can be, we usually probably replace that, certainly take off the veneer here. It's too difficult to repair, so that's something we would do if it was our piano. We look at the pedals to see how much wear there is, and the right hand pedal is a lot more worn than the left if it's been used hugely. So not been used hugely, but has been used quite a bit, as we see from the hammers. The case there is looking pretty good, rosewood. This also, well, the other toe here needs re-veneering too. And just looking at, well, you have some little bit scuff marks which can just be made good, I think. It doesn't need repolishing, fortunately. The colour behind here is just similar to the colour. Well, the panel is different because it's been replaced. This is a replaced panel because it would have originally had sconces with obviously screw holes in, so they've replaced the panel, which is quite common. The top of the piano looks pretty good as well, and the sides. I'm going quite fast because don't want to make this video too long. So just have a quick look around the other side as well. Slightly scratched again, but nothing disastrous. I've checked the piano for woodworm and moth, and neither of those, so that's encouraging. The keytops are original Ivory, nice grain to them, a little bit yellowing. We could, if it was our piano, we would, yeah, definitely. They're a bit. Sorry, you can't see very much on the video, but they're a bit dull, and that attracts the dirt. So we would buff them, but I think they'll come up slightly whiter when they're buffed as well. But not. There'll still be a slight yellowness to them. That's not something we'll be able to improve. Now looking inside the piano, this is what we call a Bechstein tied action, the top and the bottom tied together, which is a little bit awkward for working on, but we're used to it obviously, and it seems to be, there's a little bit of slack in some of the keys here. I just want to concentrate first on the most important thing that, as we've mentioned before, are the tuning pins tight. In other words, will it stay in tune? And how will it be for central heating? Well, our experience of the Model 10 is it's very, very good for central heat. It doesn't, providing you obviously keep the room not too dry, you'll be fine. Now that one's slightly out of tune, so I just checked the tightness of the tuning pin, and it's very tight, so that's very encouraging really. Original strings, original tuning pins, very small, and that's one way of telling they're original, and no broken strings, so that's good news. At concert pitch too, so ticks lots of good boxes there. These tapes are not too worn. If we're going to take them off, then to lubricate, which we would probably do with our own piano. If it was our own stock piano, then we need to lubricate here, but it doesn't, as I say, it's not had a huge amount of wear, so you may not need to feel you've got to take these off. If you do take them off, they tend to break here, so you need replacing. But at the moment they're all in perfect condition, obviously not being taken off at all. Let's check the tightness of here. This is really important. Check, are the hammers tight? And again, because it hasn't had a huge amount of wear, they are. Let's see what sort of wear is on the hammers, and that shows that it does need refacing if you want to get back to nice crisp tone. The further up you go, the more it's noticeable. If I play quietly, it needs refacing really. It's not got the crispness, especially if you listen to that. It doesn't really sound very good. It's too much of the hammer hitting the string, that's the problem. So that needs refacing, reshaping. There's plenty of felt on there, they don't need replacing. Look at the top end, and there's plenty of felt there too. So if you're a technician, obviously these are pretty obvious things to you. I can see a lot of mildew here. That's indicated that it has been in a damp environment, which is slightly concerning. So if it goes into a dry environment, it's really, really, really important to keep a lot of moisture in the room. So if you look at our website, you'll see recommended under the guarantee and humidity section under piano advice. You'll see plenty of thoughts about how you can get the moisture back. Keep the room not too dry. The pedal's noisy. That would annoy all musicians a lot. So pressing the pedal down, but the dampers are lifting off pretty much in line, again because it hasn't had a huge amount of wear, but there is some slack in the keys, which means that if you regulate those, it'll play much better, much more precisely. So that's important to do as well. So quite a few things really to do to the piano to improve. The kind of things we would do if it's our piano. Obviously you can clean the inside, but that's irrelevant in terms of the sound of the piano, just cosmetic really. If we reface the hammers, they'll look a bit cleaner on the outside. So let's listen to the piano and see what we think about the tone. Well, that's very beautiful, typical Bechstein. Well, the hammers need reshaping to give it more crispness. But damping's very good too. These are shutting off nicely. If we compare this to the tone of a Yamaha, for instance. Here's a Yamaha U3. Now, of course, that's a much crisper sound, but I'm playing this area because that's the main playing area, and that's what you need to look at first, really. Let's listen to the Bechstein again. Now, it's slightly out of tune too. But it has a richness that the Yamaha doesn't have. Having said that, the main thing about the Model 10 is it is a straight strung piano, so although this tenor area is actually more even and better, as mentioned before, just a beautiful rich sound there, but down here is a bit weak. The string's not really quite long enough and it's not going to the middle of the soundboard. So listen to the Yamaha bass. They're longer strings, so it's a richer bass. And the Bechstein. That's a very warm sound, but not as deep a sound because of the shorter strings. Something I didn't notice before is that the back of the music stand here has lots of glue here. Obviously it's come unstuck and been glued back on, so obviously that needs a bit of tidying up. Although it can't see it, so you might not worry about that. If it's our piano, of course we'd do it. So that's an assessment in transit of a Bechstein Model 10 upright piano. It's a model that we have sold many of ourselves, and just gone through it to show you kind of the work that we would do if it's our piano, to try and make it as perfect as possible. I didn't mention key weighting, which is something we always do as well, so we just want to see that it's suitable for a musician to play. So we want to see, and I can feel straight away we're going to have to do quite a lot of work to get the key weighting correct. Now it depends how much work you want done. If you want it to be like a piano that we would sell ourselves, then obviously we would do probably not far off a week's work on it, but that's obviously quite costly. So we would put the tasks in order of what we think is going to most improve the tone and the touch on the piano. Our Bechstein Model 10 was probably the most popular Bechstein in 1903 when this was made, and it's certainly a beautiful piano. The main thing is that they vary hugely in terms of how much use they've had. In this case it's had moderate use, but not excessive use, so it needs regulating, and there's slack in the keys, many other things. Well, I've mentioned them before already, so I want to keep the video short. The bottom bass is not strong, but it's normally played in an octave anyway, and the most important thing is the tone here. And certainly when it's in tune, it already sounds quite good, but it's a bit indistinct because of the hammers needing refacing. And the touch will be excellent. The touch is beautiful on Bechstein 10s, but at the moment not as beautiful as it should be. I really enjoy the tone of it. As you can see, I can play, I would love to play for a long time, and I don't have the time, and I don't want to make the video too long. So I hope that's been helpful. If you've got a piano and you want it moved from A to B, and you wanted to assess it while it's on its way from A to B, then that's something we love to do if it's a good maker piano and a piano that we feel we can get really good results out of. Thank you very much for listening.